revenue was $1 million. Well, if you look at the posters right in front of you, you'll notice that the number 100 firm is not $1 million anymore. The lowest revenue this year is $6.325 million. That's pretty good. That means that you all are doing an incredible job in bringing in some terrific money. So congratulations. So one of the other things that we look for is, of course, the ability to share this information publicly. There are quite a few engineering firms that are not represented on this list, and that's only because they are not willing or able to share the information. And we ask for a lot of information from you, so thank you. We asked for this information at the very beginning of the year, and we're looking at everything from building automation and controls to mechanical and HVAC systems, commissioning, electrical and power, fire life safety, lighting, plumbing, you name it, we ask you the questions. So again, thank you for participating. We appreciate it and are thrilled to be celebrating with you tonight. So this year, the revenue is coming from essentially the same place it came from last year. New construction and work on existing buildings is equal at 42%. And in 2012, they were both 41%. So there's not a lot of change going on in the industry at the moment. Every year we ask this question, what services are you subcontracting? And every year the answers are very similar. Acoustics engineering is apparently a very specialized type of engineering. Other subcontracted services, as you can see here, are security systems and CFD modeling, but also construction management and the very highly specialized smoke control systems. One of the things that we've learned about the MEP Giants is that you take care of your staff. You train them well, you mentor them, and you bring up your junior engineers through the ranks. And obviously, as baby boomers are retiring or perhaps moving on to second careers, mentoring has taken a front row seat for many, many firms. And as you can see, the MEP Giants, your firms, you invest in your staff. So you're spending time ensuring that those younger engineers, the younger people on your team, are moving up through the ranks. We actually honor a lot of young engineers year after year in another program. And we've noticed that these engineering firms who mentor the younger engineers are actually the ones who tend to excel. And they're a little bit ahead of the curve in some cases because they are moving forward with those young engineers. Who here has a cell phone? Anyone? All right, so you all are staying mobile. And we have been asking each year of the MEP Giants, what do you want on your mobile phone? What do you want to do with it? Are there apps that you want? Are there certain things that you're doing with your phone? Engineering calculations tends to come in at number one, but people also want information from firms about their products, about their catalogs, information about what you all are specifying. So you may be tweeting about this right now. You may have an app that allows you to tweet. So we've noticed that mobile work or mobile use is really, really increasing. And we've also noticed, as I'm sure many of you have, that the international market is increasing quite a bit. Asia and the Middle East are the two biggest areas in which your firms are doing construction work or consulting work or some type of engineering. And this has actually changed a bit, obviously, over the past few years. This has grown. The market is shifting just a bit. Of course, we know that the United States has seen a bit of a dip in the economy, so you're looking to other sources, other places around the world to bring in additional income, additional fees and services. If you do have questions about next year's MEP Giants Awards, if you want more information about this year's MEP Giants Awards, I encourage you to contact me. I'm happy to answer any questions for you or to give you more information about how your firm can move up in the rankings this year, or next year, I should say. And when we're talking about international work and we're talking about what's changing among the MEP giants, I think one of the firms that is doing quite a bit in the international arena is here tonight. It's represented on our MEP Giants list. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about this, and we're going to hear from Leo Argyris from Arup. He's going to tell us a little bit more about how his firm, Arup is a very large global consulting firm, is moving into the international arena, or has been in it for quite a while and is really expanding there. Leo has focused on a variety of different projects throughout his career. He's got quite a background across the world. He's worked on numerous university campuses, from Cornell and Princeton to Penn State University, and he's got quite a bit of experience working internationally. So I invite you up to join me, Leo, and we're looking forward to hearing more from you about how other firms can become more internationally focused. Thanks, Leo.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to CSC and for inviting me to address this group tonight, and thank you to Eaton for sponsoring the evening. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about global working, and I'm going to start out by giving a very quick introduction to Arup, and then talk a little bit about how we approach work sharing as a firm globally. So if I can figure out the slides. Okay, so here we are. We as a firm are about we're about 11,000 people, distributed globally. We operate out of something like 90 offices around the world. Here in North America, we are about 1,000 people spread across about 11 offices. So something like a little less than 10% of our staff are actually here in North America. Okay. I'll figure out the slide moving. The firm was started in London in 1946 by Sir Ove Arup. But very quickly, after the firm was started, it actually had the opportunity to start to work internationally, to work outside of London, and it has had the sort of the honor of being involved with many iconic structures around the world, and it has really sort of that involvement with buildings that have been recognizable has helped the firm in its growth, in its attraction of talent, and that's the key. How do you attract good people? And it's fueled its growth. Typically, as a firm, we operate in three broad practices, what we call buildings, infrastructure, and consulting. So roughly speaking, our work is around design of buildings, building engineering. We aim to pull together all the engineering disciplines that work in support of architecture, collaborate with architecture to design buildings. We also do a wide range of infrastructure design, whether it be bridges, tunnels, rail, aviation, basically civil engineering works. And we bring together something like 30 distinct engineering disciplines in one house, and we try to reap the benefits of an integrated design approach. We think there's a real value in an integrated design approach, but we also believe in bringing these individual services to market as individual services, and that's really the core of our consulting practice. So we're typically operating across building, engineering, consulting, and infrastructure as three distinct practices within the firm. So I was going to talk a little bit about global. So why global? For me, there are four key drivers to why thinking global. I think the first one, and probably the most important one for us, is that our clients are demanding it. That we find our clients are actually demanding a global thinking. They want to know that they are getting the best solutions and the best thinking that exists around the world, and they're not so much focused on, they want the services delivered locally, all clients do, but they want the global thinking. The second big reason that to us is that it makes good business sense, and I hope to be able to demonstrate in the next couple of minutes why that's the case. But we think it's good business to work globally. We believe, like our clients, that we deliver better quality when we mobilize global thinking, and when we can get our staff around the world to collaborate. We think that the actual end product that we're bringing to clients is better. And then I think finally, we do it because technology has come to the point where it actually allows us and enables us to do it. So, in a lot of ways, in a lot of senses, we do it because we can. So, what do I mean by global working? So, to me, it really starts by thinking about the situations in which we find ourselves working globally. One issue is to be able to take the best global expertise that we have as a firm and be able to deliver it in any location, any project, any place, being able to benefit by the best thinking that we have globally. Secondly, it's a matter of being able to mobilize resources to execute large projects under tight schedules. I don't need to tell anybody here about tight schedules and sort of the realities of getting projects done. So the ability to mobilize your resources globally to us enables a lot of projects to happen. Quite honestly, a lot of our clients have global reach. So the clients that have global reach demand a global team to support their endeavors. And then finally, when we talk about global working and we talk about our clients that want global working, all clients want the best global thinking, but they want it delivered locally. So for us, it's not a matter of just operating out of one location and delivering services everywhere. It's a matter of having credible local teams on the ground that are then tapping in to resources and sharing resources across multiple offices. That's why we have 90 offices. So before diving into sort of talking a little bit more about how we make it happen, I'm just going to quickly go through a few projects to show some of the projects that we are actually delivering global teams on. So here's a project in Las Vegas under construction. It's an observation wheel. Really the issue here, we've done a couple of wheels in other parts of the world, and it's a matter of delivering global expertise to a local project. Similarly, Air Force Memorial in Arlington, Virginia, completed a few years ago. It's a situation of a project where we had to design a damping system to make these spires work. Again, it was a matter of mobilizing global experience, of having designed similar damping systems in Europe and being able to bring it to a local project. Going up to Toronto, two projects under construction, two subway stations for the Toronto subway system. Here's a situation where the client actually was, two drivers for global working here. One was our client was demanding that we mobilize a global team because they wanted to pull in global expertise. They wanted the best thinking around station design. So they were looking and actually gave us the project because we promised to bring in global experience. But the other reality is that we had a relatively small Toronto office just starting up. So how do you undertake two large subway stations without actually mobilizing a team that's done it before in support of building up a presence in a new location? Quite a different project. This is a project under construction right now in Saudi Arabia, the King Abdulaziz International Airport. Here, a situation where the client couldn't care less where we did the work. We were awarded the project, very tight schedule. Just the structural work on the project required a team of 80-plus structural engineers. Had to be mobilized from the project award within a few weeks. Had to get the team up to over 80 structural engineers. Impossible to really mobilize them in one location, so we wound up using 7 offices. Now, the trick there is that when you mobilize that kind of number of people, they better know what they're doing, and they better be comfortable working with each other because they're working towards a single deliverable, and they're working across 3 continents and X number of time zones. So it's a matter of making sure that people are comfortable to hit the ground running and really operate and work as a team, as opposed to 7 different teams. This is a project under design up in off the coast of St. John's, Newfoundland, in Canada. It's a very different project, but a lot of similar problems. It's an oil platform. This project required a bit over 100 engineers, but the trick is that the client insists that the engineers get mobilized, that they have the expertise. There's this very specialized skill set that's required, but they have to all arrive in St. John's, Newfoundland, in the project office, because that's the deal. That's the deal that the client has done with the government of Canada, and therefore we need to deliver. So very much of a different exercise of how do you mobilize the right expertise, how do you find it, and how do you get it to move to a project office location. And we find that quite often with public sector projects where the work actually has to get done in the location that's funding it. Very quickly, final example, I think this is the final example, out in Seattle. This is a traditional building, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, quite a complex structure, large endeavor. Again, a matter of mobilizing a global team to support a relatively small office that was trying to find its feet in its market. California High-Speed Rail, a project currently under design in California. Again, the client has very much the desire to bring in global high-speed rail experience, but the demand is that the work be done in California, and that's non-negotiable. It has to be located there. So different challenges of how to mobilize and bring together teams. Marina Bay Sands, a project in Singapore. Again, very tight schedule, very complex project, and you could sort of see the dots there in terms of the number of offices that needed to get mobilized, and really just to meet the demanding schedule for the project. So in looking at those kind of projects and thinking about how does Arup go about doing it, to me there are 3 important components and 3 keys to making it work. For us, the first and probably the single most important one is nurturing and developing a common culture across the firm, so that all of the employees of the firm actually feel like they have shared goals, shared principles, shared approach to doing the work, and feel comfortable that they are one firm and are quite comfortable in a work-sharing environment where they're either expected to travel or they're expected to be able to move work around. The second one is, it's one thing to create a culture, but the culture needs to be reinforced. And for me, it's very important to be thinking about incentivizing, and what are the incentives that you put in front of people to encourage them to behave, to encourage them to show the desired behaviors. And then finally, it's how do you enable collaboration? How do you put in place systems and technology to enable the collaboration to happen? So very quickly, first on culture. Culture is all about people. And for us, it's about thinking about people and how do you create a common shared purpose amongst the staff. There's a picture of Ove, and he was a very big believer in people. And we have a set of programs that are put in place to encourage people to feel like they are part of the same firm. One of them is actually a mixing of staff. So beyond the immediate project needs and the immediate sort of needs to put people into project offices, we have a series of programs that encourage people to transfer or to work outside of their home office. And we have a target, 5% of staff in any given point in time are working in an office that's not their home office. And that's not just based on project work, that's based on early development assignments, short tours, long-term assignments. So in a firm of 11,000 people, that means that somewhere between 500 and 600 people at any point in time are working someplace outside of their home office. And it's very real, and here's some examples. Here's Michelle, who's a structural engineer. She's actually in New York now, but she's been with us for 5 years. She joined in New York. We sent her to Brisbane for a while. She came back to New York. She then went to Beijing for a while, and now she's back. So she's quite comfortable. At this point, she's getting really comfortable with cross-cultural working and working remotely. Just another example, Justin, who joined us in New York and immediately went off to Tokyo. From Tokyo, he found himself in Hong Kong, came back to New York for a bit, and now is in Rio, in Brazil. So, some examples of how we encourage some of our staff to actually really shift around, eventually come back. Some of them come back to where they started. Some of them decide that they'd like to live someplace else and turn it into more permanent transfers. The other element of creating a culture that's quite important is longevity of staff. And that's trying to create an environment where you get people to join you at a young age but actually stay. And this is a number that I sort of like to refer to because I think it's quite important, is looking at our leadership. And by our leadership, we talk about people in a leadership position, associates, associate principals, and principals, and looking at 60% of them have been with the firm for 10 years, at least 10 years. So you create a core of people that are really vested in each other and really figure out how to get things done. So, incentivizing behaviors. I said it's good enough. It's one thing to create a culture. It's another thing to make sure that the incentives are pushing people to do the right thing. So first of all, it starts with monetary rewards. And as a firm, one of the things that we do is we are an employee-owned firm. So we don't have any, we actually don't have any equity ownership. We have a firm that's owned in trust and operated for the benefit of the employees. And all the profits revert back to the employees. But we make sure that the profit sharing scheme is actually a single global scheme, and that what we reward monetarily is global performance and not the performance of any individual office and the individual project, so that all the monetary awards are pushing people towards thinking about global sharing as opposed to thinking about the performance of their individual unit. But it goes beyond just the monetary rewards. It's a matter of finding the triggers and finding the mechanisms to encourage the sharing. And that happens through what you celebrate in internal communications and external communications. And it actually gets down to the staff appraisal process, where it's very much the culture of sharing is something that's very much rewarded, and it's part of every member of staff's annual appraisal. So it's very much ingrained in that process where members of staff are asked, are they finding the opportunities to share, to collaborate across offices? And if they are, that's rewarded. It's rewarded in terms of promotion. It's rewarded in terms of achieving personal goals that are set, as well as sort of the global performance rewards. And finally, enabling collaboration. And that's enabling collaboration is a matter of investing in the mechanisms and systems to get people to, again, to share. So we very heavily invested in our intranet. We believe that it's a vital tool in enabling people to collaborate. We have a lot of discipline-based work across what we call our skills network, which is a matter of bringing communities of like-minded disciplines to share knowledge globally, to have online forums, to have exchange of data. We very much encourage knowledge development. This is is sort of a copy of our knowledge handbook, which is an idea that we need to constantly work as single global teams on a discipline basis to find better ways of doing things, collaborating, sharing tools, and more importantly, using common tools across the firm, so that when people move or when people are expected to work with each other, they're not starting from scratch. They're starting from a common knowledge base in how they approach that. Finally, we have internally, we have what we call Arup University, which is a program of continuing education for our staff, and we offer a wide range of courses. Some of them developed purely internally, some of them developed in collaboration with educational institutions. But the statistic is at any point in time, about 20% of our staff, really 1 in 5, are actually participating in a program of continuing education through what we call Arup University. And then finally, there's information technology, and that's a matter of investing in computing systems, investing in a common network, investing in common shared systems so that we push people to use the same software, to use the same approaches globally wherever possible, but we also make it so that the communication works, so that people can use remote workstations, people can connect through video conference, through any technology, so that it's easy for them to be able to work together. And the technology is an enabler, not an impediment, towards pulling together teams across continents, really. So, those are the 3 keys in my book: nurturing a common culture, incentivizing behaviors, and enabling collaboration. And to me, what I think at Arup, what makes this work, again, goes back to a common culture, one firm, getting everybody to buy in that they are working together and pulling in the same direction as a single firm, the active moving and engagement of staff to support project delivery across multiple offices, and then making sure that we have the systems to enable the collaboration. So, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Leo. Arup is number 10 on the 2013 MEP Giants list, and I think we just learned a little bit about why they're number 10. All right, so we've been working with Eaton for a few years on the MEP Giants program. They have been incredible supporters of this program. So thank you for supporting the engineers, for supporting engineering in general, ensuring that our relationship with these engineers is very, very strong. I'd like to invite up Lance Bennett. Lance has been with the industry for quite a bit of time. He comes from the lighting side. He's been on the lighting side. Eaton and Cooper Lighting recently merged, and so he's got quite a bit of experience from that portion of the industry. So thank you, Lance, for joining us tonight.
Well, listen, it's a real honor to be here. I appreciate it. And really, congratulations to all of you who are leading the engineering construction industry, leading with growth, leading with employment, leading with innovation. And again, I'm honored to be here and share a few comments, kind of being the new kid on the block. And I'm happy to assist CFE, and really the reason you all are here tonight, which is to recognize your tremendous efforts and accomplishment. And this combined group has, over the past year, I think, added $1 billion, and that's with a B, in MEP and fire protection design service revenue. Your firms have added over 6,000 new engineering employees, with 2,000 of them being in the MEP arena. And of course, this growth has come not without tremendous effort and execution, as the overall construction industry still remains sluggish. But those of you here tonight and your companies have navigated a path through this maze. Some of you have grown globally or been in the global market for a long time. Perhaps you've grown globally through acquisitions or organic expansion. and others have accomplished your growth through finding new revenue streams in core or conventional markets. But no matter how you got here, you're here. So take a few minutes, pat yourselves on the back, don't answer that email, raise your glasses to yourselves, toast and introduce yourself to the person next to you and say congratulations, because it's an outstanding job. Okay. Right arrow. Uh-huh. So, for the fourth year in a row, Eaton has had the privilege of sponsoring this auspicious event, and we are again delighted to be able to do so this year. But just like you in the room, Eaton has had a giant year as well, for many reasons, and it is because of one of those reasons that I'm here with you tonight. I think that while maybe only a third of this audience is involved in the electrical side of the business, most, if not all of you, recognize many of these legacy Eaton brands on the left of the screen. But part of the reason that Eaton has had a giant year is their acquisition of Cooper Industries, and that has dramatically expanded the electrical offering within our organization, and adding many of these well-known and well-respected brands on the right. And it's because of that acquisition that Doug, manager of our Field Applications Engineering Group of Eaton, has been kind enough to ask the new kid, and it's been a long time since anybody said that about me, to speak on Eaton's behalf tonight. And I think that this new Eaton has annual sales in the electrical construction industry of about $15 billion US dollars, up from about $9 billion before. And if I can, let me speak to just a little bit about what was Cooper Industries. So, much like many of you, perhaps, the thing that kind of excites the Eaton team is if any of you have ever been involved in an acquisition and you've seen a company that shares common core values and principles, but perhaps brings some new equation to your business, much the same has happened with Cooper and Eaton. And it just really was almost a marriage that's been too good to be true, as the Eaton and Cooper teams share experiences and share a bit of our backgrounds, we start to realize that we have so much in common. And one of those things is that Cooper Industries, like Eaton, we've had a long and proud history of being a leader in our product categories and placing a high value in innovation and ethics. And you can see a little bit about the statistics on the screen. But prior to the acquisition, Cooper was around $6 billion US dollars, and all of that was in the electrical industry. Cooper was and has been a global player with sales in over 175 countries and employees in 100 countries. And combine that with Eaton's electrical businesses that were $9 billion prior to acquisition, the combined group is now $15 billion US dollars as part of Eaton's overall $22 billion in annual revenue. Now, if I can, let me just take a quick look at a little more detail of some of the legacy Cooper brands. So prior to the acquisition, Cooper had 7 operating divisions shown here on the screen. 6 of those divisions were headquartered in the United States, with one division, the safety division, being based in the United Kingdom. Each division held a strong, if not dominant, position within their product or market space due to a long-term commitment to quality and innovation. And from the many constituents we have, the one group that we think has been most demanding and most accepting of that innovation is the MVP consultant. So the investment we make to continually improve and expand our products really just starts with product development. One of the metrics we use internal to our company is something called a vitality index. And within our company, our vitality index, which is the measure of product sales from products that are less than 3 years old, is a ratio of 100%, as a percentage of 100%. That number for us is about 30%. So you can imagine that it takes a tremendous amount of investment to develop that speed of new products. But really, it just starts with the product development. The real key for us is being able to communicate and educate our clients about those new products. And it really starts with our team of highly trained and technical staff that has to come into hopefully your offices and provide information. We multiply those efforts through a extensive range and network of independent sales agents. We provide additional support through educational and training facilities around the country and abroad. And of course, no company can exist today without the electronic tools to communicate, website, web portal, application newsletters, and a full suite of BIM information modeling information. So I guess Doug asked me to come up and talk a little bit about what's changing in the lighting world. So while this is probably just one small little aspect of what some of you do, and I realize that not everybody is involved in the electrical space, I wanted to share a little presentation that I gave to some lighting professionals recently in terms of where we are within the lighting industry, specifically as it relates to LED. So first of all, why is everybody getting jacked up about LED? Well, first of all, the lighting component of electrical energy is about 20%. And electrical energy constitutes something north of a third of all energy consumed. So the bottom line is that lighting energy consumes about 8% of our total energy consumed in the United States. In addition, for those mechanical folks out there, and I happen to be a mechanical engineer, lighting also contributes in many areas to the heat load within a building. And the bottom line is that LEDs hold the promise of being able to reduce lighting power by 50%, and I'll show you how in the next few slides, or a total reduction of 4% in our total energy consumption. So let me talk a little bit about how is that going to happen. So this is a chart that we in the lighting industry refer to as our miles per gallon chart. So everybody knows about miles per gallon. That's the way we rate the efficiency of a car. In the lighting world, it's lumens per watt, LPW. So here's kind of a little chart of the lighting systems that are in place currently. And I just want to draw your attention to a few numbers. I'm going to go ahead and click ahead. And these are probably the numbers that are most relevant for all of us. I put up incandescent and halogen sources only because they're actually still in pretty wide use, primarily in residential applications, but also in commercial applications. But if I look at the lighting systems that are currently probably being specified by your firms, we're really talking about fluorescent and HID. So the lamp, the bulb, the source of light in a fluorescent system is delivering about 95 lumens per watt, or producing, I should say, about 95 lumens per watt. That actually only equates to about a 72% lumen per watt delivered, light delivered into the space. That's what you're paying for the watts. What you're getting is lumens delivered into the space. HID has a little bit of higher number. It's about 107 lumens per watt, but still in the mid-70s in terms of delivered lumens per watt. Now, I'm going to ask you to kind of remember those numbers. So let me talk first about the little pie charts that are kind of cascading across the screen. So starting on the upper left-hand corner, this is where the LED space was in 2008. In 2008, the cost of a luminaire, a light fixture, about 69% of the cost was in the LED array and the driver that was required to operate it. In 2010, that number had dropped a little bit to about 66%. You take 31 and 35%. But notice what happens in 2015. that cost comes down to 44% of the cost of the system. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of highlight a few other numbers. And if you can recall from the previous slide, a HID and fluorescent system was delivering around 100 lumens per watt, the source, the lamp itself, delivering mid-70s. Now let's look at the upper right-hand corner. That's the LED array itself, 141 lumens. This is not a projection. This is reality. The LED light engines themselves in 2012 were producing about 141 lumens per watt. That's the number circled in the upper right. But now move down to the lower left, and you'll see that in that same time period, it's delivering within the space about 90 lumens per watt. So we are now above the delivered light last year from LED compared to fluorescent or HID. But the really telling story is look what happens in 2015 and in 2020. The LEDs array go to 200 lumens per watt plus, delivering 141 lumens, so twice what we're delivering now. And in 2020, that number goes to 250 and 193 lumens per watt. And by the way, if you look at the number at the bottom of the chart in the upper right-hand corner, look at the cost per kilolumen, dollars per kilolumen. You'll see, and that's a number that we use in our system to say, how much does all this equipment cost to produce this amount of light? And you can see that it's going to go from $7.50 to $1 in the course of the next, 7, 8, 9 years. So, one of the other things that a lot of people have a tough time getting their head around is what are we going to do with those lumens? Where do those lumens actually go? Where does that light actually go? So I thought I'd throw a little chart up here to talk about not only how efficient the LED systems are, but what you're going to be able to do with those lumens. So here's a quick comparison. This is the state of where we exist today. Many of you may specify parking garage or site luminaires, roadway luminaires. 250 watt pulse start metal halide is a very common luminaire on the left. We start out with 22,000 initial lumens. The LED fixture on the right, half the wattage, but half the lumens. So you say, well, I'm not getting what I'm paying for. I'm only getting half as many lumens. But if you look at first optical efficiency, so in other words, how many lumens are getting out of the luminaire, on the left, it's about a 70% ratio. On the right, LEDs, by the way they're tested, are 100% lumens escaping the fixture. On the left, we're looking at where does the light go? How many people have driven down a road at night? You see the light blasting across the road, onto the sidewalk, across to a green area, a green belt. With LEDs, those light sources are much more controlled, so a good percentage more actually hits the target that you're trying to illuminate. And last, LEDs depreciate in lumen output much more slowly than HID sources. So the bottom line is, I start out with half as many lumens, but I end up with 7,600 lumens delivered to what I'm trying to light versus 7,000 for HID. So next, this is kind of the paradigm, or one of the paradigm shifts we're trying to address in our industry is, it is a simple fact that we've already been talking about LEDs are increasing in light output. What we haven't talked about is that LEDs are getting smaller. So the last time I checked, those two factors combined means that LEDs are getting brighter. And getting to the point where glare becomes a major challenge. So, but I'm happy to say that new technologies are being introduced that allow the interjection of LEDs, very bright sources, into materials that will refract that light and deliver soft, uniform lighting throughout a space. And the big space, and I was talking to someone at my table a bit earlier about this is kind of the fluorescent area, that 2x2, 2x4 area is the last bastion. We've made quick transitions in outdoor and in downlighting and other areas, but fluorescent is a very nice source, has very nice low initial cost, very nice long life. LEDs have had a tough time kind of competing in this arena. But now we're starting to see that fact occur. And one of the other things, I guess, for the mechanical side of our business, is that these fixtures also project in a lot less into the plenum space. So I know there might be a few happy people to know that these fixtures aren't 8, 12 inches deep, that they're now 2.5 inches deep or less in many cases. And last, let's not forget about the fact that ASHRAE is now, starting next year, it's no longer a luxury to talk about lighting control, but it's now mandatory. Some type of automated, either on-off or dimming control. The nice thing about LEDs is they are instant on and off. Anybody watched that thing called, what was it called, the Super Bowl, I think, last year in New Orleans? May have had a few extra cocktails there for about 20 or 30 minutes while the lights were coming back on. Well, 20 years from now, that wouldn't be an issue. So LEDs can come on instantly. And they actually like to be turned on and off, unlike other lighting sources that maybe have degraded life. And there's no additional cost for dimming or on-off control with LED. Kind of comes as part of the package. And here's just an example of a new parking garage luminaire, and it may be hard to see from the screen, but there's just an integrated occupancy sensor that we can now start to incorporate into things like parking garage or exterior lighting, so that we're not actually operating the lights at full all the time. And of course, LEDs being solid-state devices like to operate in a digital environment, and there are all types of new control topologies. I shouldn't say new, they've actually been around for quite a long time, but I think with LED, you're going to see a much wider acceptance of things like an open protocol called DALI on the right. And so from a simple standpoint, the diagram on the left is a conference room with what the wiring construction might look like to control these different banks of lights separately. And on the right, this open protocol called DALI makes the system much more friendly. Now, a few other things just to give you a little kind of peek under the tent in terms of what we see coming down the pike. First of all, LEDs are semiconductor devices, and traditionally they like to operate on DC power, like other solid-state devices. But there are manufacturers out there of LED arrays that are developing AC line voltage LEDs. So the bottom line is that thing called a driver could potentially go away. Current LEDs do actually perform best on DC systems, but there are companies out there that are somewhat betting the future on the fact that we'll be looking at a whole new power distribution system somewhere in the future. We now have the capability with solid-state devices. There's a company, Armstrong Sealing Company, has kind of started a consortium of a number of manufacturers called the Emerge Alliance, and they believe that the future may be that power distribution gets distributed on ceiling grids instead of the conventional ways that we do today. Now, I don't know whether that will be the case, but it is kind of interesting to think about. It's certainly interesting to think about the fact that buildings in the future may have wind farms and solar arrays, and we may have many small DC power plants instead of big, large power plants in one location. The bottom line is, I was again speaking to a few people earlier. I think I've been in the lighting industry for close to 30 years now, and 7, 8, 9 years ago we started talking about LED in a meaningful way. And I shouldn't admit this, but I was one of those early naysayers. I've seen a lot of technologies kind of come and go, and I kind of felt like, well, LEDs will certainly have an impact, but I certainly would not have thought that they would have the impact that we have today. 60% of all our exterior lighting that we manufacture today is LED. Nearly 50% of all of our kind of recessed down lighting is LED. The big bastion is kind of the 2x4, 2x2 kind of space, but that's quickly changing. So I think LEDs are here and they're here to stay. You're going to see higher performance, lower cost, and greater design flexibility. We're still in the lighting industry designing with what I call hybrid fixtures. You know, much like a vehicle or hybrid vehicles, they're gas, they're electric. Well, certainly the automotive industry is starting to develop all electric vehicles, and you're starting to see the lighting industry start to develop all LED luminaires. And I think there are a lot of promise of new and additional technologies. And that's kind of a little bit of an update on what's happening in my little corner of the world. And I wanted to thank you again for allowing me to share in your evening tonight. And, a lot of people say, what's that common saying, that there's only one thing that's constant, and that's change. And that certainly is true, and I think we all recognize it. But I just hope that everyone here can join me in hoping that the one thing that doesn't change is our ability to adapt and execute in this ever-evolving and changing world. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak for a few minutes on your special evening. And again, congratulations to all of you and CFE Media for putting on this wonderful event. I think it's outstanding. So thank you all very, very much.